My 17-year-old daughter looked me dead in the eye in front of 20 party guests and said, "I wish you weren't my mother. Consider yourself disowned." She packed her bags that exact night and moved into her wealthy father's mansion. I was devastated, heartbroken. I spent 2 days in total dark silence, convinced I was the worst parent on earth. But on the third morning, a massive semi-truck backed into my driveway. Two men stepped out with a clipboard and asked for my signature. When I asked what was in the trailer, the driver handed me a court summons and a manifest that changed everything I thought I knew about my ex-husband, my daughter, and the double life they'd been building behind my back. They thought they were stripping me of everything I owned. Instead, they handed me the ultimate weapon to destroy their entire plan. My name is Claire. I'm 38 years old, and for the past decade, my entire life has revolved around being a good mother. It was 7 o'clock on a Saturday evening. The living room was filled with soft amber lighting, music, and 20 of my daughter Chloe's closest friends. I had spent 6 months saving up to throw her the ultimate 17th birthday party, gourmet catering, customized decorations, everything she had ever asked for. I was standing near the cake table, smiling, waiting for her to blow out the candles. Then, out of nowhere, Chloe slammed her glass onto the counter. The room went dead silent. She looked me straight in the eye, her face twisted with a cold, calculated disdain I'd never seen before, and screamed that the party was an embarrassing joke. Before I could even speak, she raised her voice, so every guest could hear. "I wish you weren't my mother. Consider yourself disowned." She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her packed bags from the hallway, walked out the front door, and climbed into her wealthy father's sports car waiting at the curb, leaving me standing alone in a room full of stunned, silent guests. The 2 days following the party were a blur of suffocating silence and crushing grief. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room staring at the lingering birthday decorations, torturing myself with questions. Where did I go wrong? How could my own daughter cut me out so effortlessly? I felt completely shattered, convinced I was a total failure as a parent. Then came the third morning. At precisely 8 o'clock, the harsh hiss of air brakes shattered the neighborhood quiet. I pulled back the curtains and froze. Blocking my driveway was a massive, 30-foot commercial moving truck, its metallic body catching the morning glare. I threw open the front door, expecting a driver who had simply turned down the wrong residential street. Instead, 2 burly men in gray uniforms hopped out of the cab. The lead driver pulled a metal clipboard from his side, scanned his paperwork, and looked straight at me. "Claire Vance?" he asked, his voice completely devoid of emotion. "Yes," I replied, my stomach dropping. "We're here for the total property extraction. Sign here so we can begin." "Extraction," I echoed, my hand trembling as I held the front door open. "There's been a mistake. I didn't order any movers." The driver didn't argue. He simply unclipped a thick set of documents from his board and thrust them toward me. "Order came through yesterday, ma'am. Paid in full by Julian Vance. Manifest covers all residential furnishings, electronics, personal valuables, and structural assets tied to the marital estate." My chest tightened. Julian, my ex-husband. We had been divorced for 5 years, and the court had awarded me this house and everything inside it. I flipped through the pages with shaking hands. It wasn't just a moving order. Tucked behind the inventory list was an official legal packet, an emergency filing signed by Julian's high-priced attorney. They were claiming that because Chloe had legally chosen to relocate to her father's custody, I was in breach of our original decree. They alleged I was mentally unstable, squandering family assets, and actively destroying property that belonged to my daughter's future inheritance. Chloe hadn't just walked out on her birthday in a fit of teenage rage. She and her father had carefully orchestrated the entire scene, using her exit to launch a surprise ambush designed to strip me down to bare drywall. As the shock began to clear, my mind shifted from heartbroken mother to analytical mode. I've worked for years reviewing complex financial records, and I knew how to spot a fatal flaw in a hasty plan. Julian had moved too fast. I looked down at the moving company's invoice. The property address listed was solely in my name, a fact finalized in our divorce 5 years ago. Julian had sent a commercial crew to seize assets from a residence he had zero legal right to enter. He was so eager to intimidate me that he committed blatant illegal trespass. I hurried into my home office and began digging through my files. Inside a locked drawer, I pulled out the original property deed, the clean court order from our divorce, and paid receipts for every piece of furniture in the house. Then, I found something even better. On Chloe's abandoned iPad, logged into her cloud account, were text messages between her and Julian dating back 4 months. Julian had promised her a brand new luxury car and a trust fund if she staged a dramatic public exit on her birthday to fabricate evidence of an unstable home. I wasn't broken anymore. I was armed. By 9:15, I was sitting across from my attorney, Sarah. I placed the mover's manifest, the iPad text logs, and my property deed directly onto her glass desk. Sarah skimmed the documents, her sharp eyes widening. He sent a moving crew to empty a home registered entirely to your name without an executed writ of execution? This isn't just illegal, it's reckless endangerment of his own legal standing. She immediately picked up her desk phone and dialed the county clerk. Within 30 minutes, Sarah drafted an emergency injunction for unlawful asset seizure, illegal entry, and fraud. But as she pulled up Julian's public corporate filings to attach to the motion, something far bigger surfaced on her screen. Julian's investment firm was under active federal investigation for insolvency. He wasn't trying to secure Chloe's inheritance. He was broke, facing imminent bankruptcy, and attempting to seize my fully paid-off assets to liquidate them for fast cash before his own accounts were frozen. He had manipulated our 17-year-old daughter into destroying her relationship with me just to cover his illegal debts. Sarah smiled coldly. The judge just signed the emergency order. The movers are blocked, and Julian's assets are officially frozen. At 11 o'clock, the roar of a sports car signaled Julian's arrival. He strolled up my driveway beside Chloe, expecting to find a completely emptied house and a broken woman. Instead, he found 2 marked police cruisers, my attorney, and the moving truck sitting entirely untouched. Julian's smug expression dissolved the moment he saw the officers step forward. "What is this?" he demanded, stepping in front of Chloe. "I have a right to protect my daughter's assets." "Mr. Vance, you have no rights to this property," Sarah said, handing him the court order. "You've been served with an emergency injunction for illegal trespass, fraud, and attempted asset theft." Chloe gasped, turning to her father. "Dad, what is she talking about? You said this was all legal." I walked down the porch steps and looked directly at my daughter. "He lied to you, Chloe. He doesn't have a trust fund for you. He's going bankrupt, and he used your birthday to try and steal my home to pay off his corporate debts." Julian's face went pale as the lead officer stepped up to hand him a formal summons. The trap had sprung, and his entire scheme collapsed in broad daylight right in front of the daughter he had manipulated. The legal fallout for Julian was swift and merciless. Facing corporate fraud charges, severe court sanctions, and complete financial ruin, his wealth vanished almost overnight. 6 weeks after that morning, my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Chloe standing on the porch, her suitcase resting at her feet, tears streaming down her face. She sobbed, begging for forgiveness, admitting that her father had manipulated her greed and insecurity, and asking if she could come home. I looked at my daughter, feeling the deep ache of a mother's love, but I stayed firm. I told her that I forgave her, but trust had to be earned back piece by piece. She couldn't just walk back into my life without real accountability and family counseling. Today, my home is quiet, fully intact, and peaceful. Chloe and I are working through the hard process of rebuilding our relationship from the ground up, one honest conversation at a time. I learned that being a good parent doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It means standing strong in the truth, protecting your boundaries, and living with dignity.